Hi, trade professionals. We're back with another news roundup. And this week, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I have some great articles that we're going to talk about. I definitely had some reading to do because things were not adding up in my head, and they're still not adding up, really. But that's why I have Lalo and Andy here in the studio, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to probably have some controversial topics because I know they will happen. I know these people too well. We've done a couple of episodes by now, and I know that will happen. But you know what? It's exciting, and if you guys have any share points, then please contact us. Please, LinkedIn and email us, whatever you need. We are here and we're ready to talk. So let's get straight into it. So the first article will be about retail, the retail industry, because Biden is changing your trade policy, is what the article is saying. So basically, he has a different philosophy on the retail trade policies, and he kind of wants to change the way we do things now. And one comment there was made was the government, in a retailer's mind, is supposed to work for the people, not spend time defining who the people are, which is what contradicted with what Biden's philosophy is. So I want to talk about this philosophy. What does it mean? And yeah, let's get into that before we get all the critics. So let's just talk about the philosophy first, and then you guys can critique that.
Well, in general, I guess I always look at this and how to break it down and what they're talking about. And pretty much it doesn't really say what the Biden administration wants to do, first of all. But anyway, it's saying like pretty much we want to implement ideas or rules that we technically follow in the US for foreign manufacturers bringing in stuff to the United States, where they treat their employees fairly and they do environmental, they follow environmental have environmental concerns, but it really doesn't say how or any. I mean, the retailers are probably just thinking, what the heck are we going to do? It doesn't make sense. The reason they gave in the article anyway, and I researched other articles that are similar, but the reason they say is because they're saying that retailers are sacrificing supply chain security for reduction in costs, to make better profits, and so they're sacrificing our security and workers' rights, et cetera, because of faster, more efficient supply chains. So that's what the article says, and of course we have, or I have other opinions, but I don't know if Andy, if you want to summarize it, or that's good summary, and then you just go and talk about our thoughts about it.
Yeah, well, the scenario on this is when they're saying it, they're claiming it's a philosophical change. And you're trying to say you're identifying it as a philosophy in trade. Well, now what they're doing is redefining the term people. And it has always traditionally been consumers. What is in a trade deal? You're trying to find out what's going to be the best thing for, to the strong benefit of consumers, which is in this case into the U.S. or out of the U.S. And they are taking the people associated with a company and they're taking them out of this definition. And so they're putting this in and they're trying to say, with people, it also means that the activities involved with pay, involved with improving the environment and reducing, green gases and stuff like that, all that. All right. So what's the net result of this? What we have is basically apparently some folks in the U.S. Trade Office that are trying to come up with this, that are trying to redefine what people means. It has an effect on, well, what's that mean to current trade deals? And it actually will wipe them out because they've changed the definition. So you have to renegotiate a trade deal. They are not spending activities to renew these trade deals. And in this, what the other side of this is, and it sounds a little complex. So I'm sorry, folks, so hang with me here for a second. But basically, when you start redefining the terms of what you're using, then it's like people are trying to figure out what it means, and they are taking the focus off of improving trade relations, improving trade cycle times, and improving the way how fast cargo goes in and out of countries. And you're getting it hung up with, well, these other things that they're wanting to throw at you. So the net result is there's confusion. There's not a strategy in this. It doesn't, the Biden administration's trade negotiators, there does not seem to be any rhyme or reason here. And so they're trying different things, and it's causing a lot of confusion. Like I said, there are trade deals out there that should be up for renewal, and they're not even being presented to Congress for a renewal. So the net result's going to be those trade deals will expire and tariffs will go up on products from certain countries. And it's just a negative domino effect. So to me, this is just a case where somebody who is extremely amateuristic in their trade policies doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and they're screwing up the existing trade deals with the idea of trying to come up with something else for the future. And it doesn't, I mean, nobody can figure this out. No, it doesn't make sense.
Attention all trade geeks. The G-Tech conference is coming to Oklahoma City and you won't want to miss it. Mark your calendars for July 30th through August 1st and join us for a jam-packed event with expert-led sessions and networking opportunities. And guess what? The Simply Trade podcast will be recording live at the event. Don't miss this unique chance to be featured on the show and share your insights with fellow trade professionals. We'll see you in Oklahoma City, where trade compliance takes center stage. Go to www.ncbfaa.org and become part of the action. Well, also, this I think leads into our second article, because this is also about trade policy, the U.S. trade policy, but this time it's not about our retail industry. It's about the trade policy with India, because I think what I understand from this article is that we're trying to restore it. But I've also seen a lot of controversy because I saw an article, actually, as I was researching this article, I saw another one, and it said that India was never our ally and never wanted to be our ally. Which I thought it was funny, and then I reread the article, and I'm like, wait, I don't know if I'm reading this right, or I don't know if I'm understanding it, but I'm understanding that we do want to salvage our relationship, because obviously the U.S. kind of needs India or wants India to be a partner. I don't know if India wants the same. I think they would. I don't know. You guys tell me. So they talked about friendshoring. I want to talk about friendshoring because I think that's the main thing that they want to implement, or that's something that they mentioned at the end for a solution. And then I also so that's one question. And then I have a question on why is importing steel and aluminum from India considered a security threat? I was confused on that.
And that's where I have to, well, you hear bits and pieces. Okay. And sometimes it's like, sometimes when you're listening to reports and government officials, sometimes you have to pay attention to what they're not telling you, kind of thing. It's like, well, no, wait a minute. He never, or she never mentioned X and whatever. All right. Let me deal with the steel and aluminum. The issue there is, the steel industry in the U.S., has been somewhat devastated, and it was making a surge back, and that's fine. But here's where it becomes a security threat. It's not that it's Indian steel or aluminum. It's the fact that the Indian steel and aluminum the issue is that if you are dependent upon foreign steel and aluminum, in the event that there is a war, a battle, there's trade relations that break off, and you're now dependent on that steel to come in to manufacture your vehicles and your weapons and your military aircraft, or your aircraft for that matter, and all that kind of stuff. That's where the security threat comes into play. So there has to be sufficient production of steel and aluminum in the U.S. All right. Now, that said, there's those that will say, okay, steel and aluminum produced in India is subsidized by the Indian government. Well, wait a minute. That means that they're able to sell their products into the U.S. lower than if they had to cover their whole costs themselves as far as the manufacturer goes. So there's issues with that. So when you start negotiating all these things, you have to look at it in the big picture. So just understand, if somebody is selling a product offshore or manufacturing a product offshore and it comes into the U.S. and is being sold below market, that's called dumping, quite frankly, hence anti-dumping. That's, but it's hurting the U.S. domestic market at the saying, the steel market or whatever. That's where they're talking about they are implying it. They didn't get into a whole lot of details on that, but that's what that issue is.
No, yeah, it just stood out to me because I was confused, and then I was like, I might as well ask you guys because I think you guys would have an answer. So there you go, and I'm sure other people question that too because I've never seen that anywhere. So now we know. Okay, that's great to know. So let's get into friendshoring and or what their solution is or why we want to recover Indian ties and what this can also do for our economy, because I feel like some companies might be able to benefit from that, maybe from having more trade policies with India and whatnot. So let's get into that and what you guys think. Quick thoughts.
Well, I think friendshoring is just another term for, offshoring or, anything. I mean, it's just, well, I mean, that's kind of, they're saying they're our friend now, I think it's just another way of saying something that they do not want. I guess they need to address well, anyway, let me go back to
allies, becoming an ally.
Yeah. But are they our allies? Are they?
Well, that's what they're trying to work towards. I mean, they technically are. India really wants to do business with us, and we obviously want to do business with them. It's the world's second largest populous country. I mean, so I think that's what it is, right? I mean, but anyway, and so of course there's a lot of upside for us to do business with them. The thing is that India kind of got sour on us a little bit because of, like you said, the tariffs on aluminum and steel. And then secondly, there's a program called GSP, and we can probably talk about that on a separate show. So GSP is kind of like a free trade agreement, but not really. It's more like we give them preferential duties for manufacturing and et cetera. So anyway, but we can go into more detail on that on another show. But that has not been renewed with India. So they're kind of like all of a sudden they're paying 35% more duties or taxes or duties, period. I didn't mean 35%. Sorry, erase that. They're paying more duties and taxes. I'm thinking of the requirements to be GSP. Yeah. I'm trying to dictate the rules and regulations for being eligible for GSP, not the actual duty reduction. Sorry about that. I don't want to confuse anyone. So anyway, so yeah. I mean, it they would like that implemented again. But so here's a challenge. We just talked about the policy, the new Biden trade policy, which is, all this, the people redefining and everything. So here's a problem. India is the biggest abuser, or can be. I'm not, take that back. Can be one of the biggest abusers of like environment, maybe even labor rights and stuff like that. Okay. I'm not saying they're the biggest, they can be. So the challenge is, how could we as the United States, I mean, it's kind of contradictory. How could we as the United States want to do and be friends, like you said, friendshoring, but friends with a country who violates that policy that the new administration, the new administration wants to enforce now? It's kind of it is contradictory. And so where are we? Are we going to enforce this policy? Are we not? Or are we going to kind of look the other way? Because I mean, India, it's like turning, they say that you cannot turn a cargo ship that easily, try to see that turn around, right? India cannot all of a sudden implement trade policy. I mean, all of that, like from one day to the next, that's going to take years. So what do we do? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's just my point of view on this.
Yeah. Well, I hope it works out, and I hope that we can move away from China, which I don't know if that's so great, but India seems like a great replacement somehow. Maybe we're gonna keep that on the radar, but we're moving into digital trade, and we've had digital trade in our one of our episodes, which we discussed what it exactly is. If you want to go back to that one, I'm not sure which one it is. You can find it all of our episodes. You should be listening to all of our episodes anyway, so you'll hear it somewhere. But let's go in this. It's the U.S. is losing Asia's multilateral trade game. So I was reading this article, and I had to Google some abbreviations and stuff like IPEF and RCEP. Very weird terms, but IPEF is, I think that was for the United States, and RCEP is the Asian regions or whatever, and those are digital trade kind of policies, I would say, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like trade. They're not really trade agreements, but yes, they're
Trade
economic
policies. Yeah, or
policies.
like
Yes.
digital economic opportunities. And so what I heard in the article is that Asia is giving a much better platform to their digital trade economy, while the US is kind of still building, kind of working towards their way, but not having the possibilities that the Asian market has, which I don't know, you guys might comment better on that, but that's what I read. So if you guys want to just give your opinions on that, or challenges or opportunities for companies, or what the US can maybe do better in this sense, you guys can give me those answers now.
So this is not really, the article is not really talking about so much about trade like tariffs or duties or anything like that, which again, that's going to be part of my argument here in a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about it if there's time. But the thing is, it's talking about how China and the countries that are members are RCEP are leading the way in developing e-commerce, digital trade, I guess, if you want to call it. I mean, it's they're leading the way on that. I mean, they say like Alipay, that's the payment system of Alibaba, is miles ahead of anything that we have here in the U.S. because they nurture it and they share that. They grow that. That pretty much the article is criticizing our version of RCEP, which is like you had said earlier, Annik. It's the Indo-Pacific. What is it called?
Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.
Yeah. Yes. IPEF. So we do have that, but it's like we've talked about this before. We're just sitting on that idea. Oh, look at this cool plan. We have this really neat thing that we're going to do, but it's just an idea. It's just a thought. Same thing as a trade policy we talked about in the first article and the second article. It's a thought and an idea. It's not necessarily something that's getting done because for whatever reason, it's just not getting done. It's just basically an idea. So that's why everything that the RCEP is doing for digital is pretty much the thought process in the IPEF. It's just that they're doing it and we're not.
And the RCEP stands for Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and that is an effort that's led by China, and they're actually putting legs to this thing. In other words, they're taking action and putting in offering suggestions, and so it's a collaboration of the countries in that region. Well, the U.S. is trying to come along with their Indo-Pacific economic framework, going, oh no, we can lead this effort, and it's talking along the same lines, but just like Lalo said, it's talk. It's womp, 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 womp. And here we go.
Aren't we staying back then? Like, we're always the one to stay behind somehow. Because I'm seeing, like, okay, Asia is giving all these opportunities, right, for these digital trade company, or the people that want to do digital trade or are in the industry, I don't know. But giving them the platform to kind of succeed, while the US is kind of like, well, we're trying and we're trying to do the same thing, but like we have also like a million other things to take care of.
Well, and they're also sitting there going, can't we all just get along kind of stuff? And it's like, really? And China is what they're doing is helping some of these countries actually come alongside and offering a platform for them to work with some of their systems. The point being is this digital trade, as we've talked about, I find it interesting where the RCEP is trying for inclusion of digital trade within the trade deals that they're working on. And the point being is they understand the easier it is for supporting more and more digital trade. Hence, I got an order. I got to send it over. I'm ordering something. I'm getting it back. I'm doing all these things. I'm exchanging emails or whatever. All that's digital trade.
And financial stuff too, right? I mean,
exactly.
Like that's very important. Right.
And so if it's all inclusive in the trade deals, then it's all, they're looking at things holistically. And the U.S. and Europe, we just talked about last time, where Europe is already moving forward with trying to put a tax on digital trade, and others are talking about it. So what happens there? That's going to be restrictive to digital trade and punitive to digital trade. And yet you can't go over here and say, no, guys, follow us. We're, look at what we've got a good idea. It's like, you know what? Go pound sand, because China is actually moving forward with these countries and getting something done. We are advocating our leadership role in the world on trade and working things out and facilitating trade now to China, because we're so dadgum screwed up. We can't even, these people would screw up a 2-car parade. I'm telling you, they don't know what the Sam Hill they're doing. They're redefining things. They're coming over here and no, talk to us, whatever, but there's no strategy. And it's just amazing on how screwed up that they are moving. And yes, people are not going to follow a country or a leader that they don't have confidence in. And people right now in other parts of the world do not have confidence in the U.S. right now.
But guess what's more interesting? First of all, how can we help the U.S. economy? And I know exactly who can help, and you guys will not expect it, but this is actually funny. You know what? Taylor Swift is bringing in $5 billion to the economy. So, hello, she can actually save the day here, because clearly the US can't do it himself. So who has to do it? Taylor Swift. I'm just letting you guys know. And
I'll tell you
but
that is one of the smartest entertainers in the industry.
Right?
She manages her own career. She manages her own stuff. She honestly is one of the smartest people
I think so too.
around.
Yeah, she took a page out of Garth Brooks, because that's a lot what Garth Brooks did. It's taking control of your own career that way. That guy is brilliant the way he did his business. Anyway, was that your fun fact?
Well, it was not my fun fact, but I needed to say it because, it just all seems so negative about the US. So she's American, so might as well. But actually, my interesting fact is that Italy is obviously the number one importer or exporter, right? Of wine. Yeah, I was in Italy just this weekend, so it was great, but didn't really have wine actually. But anyways, it's them, and it's $7 billion. Anyways, okay, this episode was very long, but it was very technical, and there's a lot going on in the US right now, I think, so maybe it's justified. But again, like, subscribe, follow us everywhere on LinkedIn, on Twitter. We've been pretty active on Twitter, so if you want to share there, I think it's pretty easy to share your thoughts if you want to be critical or whatever. And yeah, so thank you, Lalo and Andy. It's always great talking to you, because clearing up all the difficulties I have reading this article, it literally takes me an hour to get through this, because I have to reread it, and I'm like, are my questions stupid? Am I just not reading right? Whatever. So thank you for listening, and we can't wait to be back, and go check out all the other episodes, because they're very informative and sometimes fun, and sometimes you'll learn new things that you can implement in your business. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show, or would like to sponsor Simply Trade, or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only, and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.